Let's talk coaching and mentoring. And I I think that the happiest and most successful people in the world, define success however you will. Basically, people that live really good lives really are in sync with the world. They're in sync with their thoughts, are people that can communicate effectively. And in order to be able to coach and mentor someone and inspire and motivate them and educate them and get them to be the best them they can be, you need to be able to communicate effectively. And a big part of coaching and mentoring is being able to analyze, being able to understand where they are, being able to know how to communicate and teach. And not everybody learns the same way. And a master coach or a master mentor or a master manager is able to adapt to the people that they are teaching, inspiring, motivating. And so one of the things that we're gonna cover, it's got an undercurrent or undertone throughout the whole lesson, is that the aspect of communication is one of the most vital skills you need to be a good coach and mentor. It's really true. I don't think you can be a good good coach or mentor without being a good communicator. So I want you to think about that as we get into this. Now, first thing is, in order to be a great coach, a great teacher, whether you're going to be with somebody for one session or you're going to work with them every day on your team or whatever it might be, one of the things I see people skip completely is this element of the starting point. So I'll be really clear. Starting points and understanding with whom you're coaching and mentoring and teaching. If you do not have a great handle on where they are at the moment, it's almost impossible, dare I say impossible, to be able to actually coach them effectively, because the level of expectations we have of them, if we think somebody's more advanced than they are, our level of expectations are higher. What we say to them to communicate the steps they need to take or how they can think or opening up their perspective or whatever it is we're engaging with them on, it's not in sync. And so, I have made the mistake many times of, when I'm working with somebody, making an assumption about either their level of knowledge, their level of proficiency, or what I think somebody at that stage in their career, or that many days on the job, or working on whatever it is that you're helping them with, that many days under their belt, I think they should be at this level, or I think they should be here or there. And it's just, it becomes just a bad place to start if we are not synced up correctly. Who's guilty of this? Who's guilty of this? Anybody manage a team, hire somebody, and then all of a sudden become impatient because that person isn't as knowledgeable as you thought, as up to speed as you thought? You forgot how long it took you to learn everything you learned. Right? We make this assumption. And one of the other things is that much of the time we forget or we don't recalibrate where that person is in relation to where we were, and they're operating under a different set of environments, circumstances, upbringings, biases, and so on. So when I was 22 and I walked out of college, I had been taught through high school and college and just the environment I operated in, how to communicate and how to be personable, and some of these other things that somebody today who's 22, who's never been without a cell phone, who communicates via text, is not starting at the same level of an ability to communicate at 22 years old as I was, or where the length of time it might take me to research something and draw a conclusion in 1988, when Google wasn't available until 1998. So they've always had immediate access to information. That also makes it easy to access information or more information that someone needs to sift through to figure out what works and what isn't a reality. Do you follow what I'm saying? Cultural differences, other things. So my point is, in all of this, if you don't have the right starting point and basically understand where are they now, it's very difficult for you to help them move along quickly. So one of the things that I always like to do is, whether somebody comes to work with me at Mile Walk, or whether I'm coaching somebody, or whether I'm helping somebody on their job search, or whatever, I have to say, where are you now? What have you done? What do you know? Have you watched my videos on the job search challenge or the whatever? I asked you all, did you watch the coaching and mentoring session? Right? These are all starting points, benchmarks. So I, in your booklet and in the lesson, taught you you could use some form of this. There's beginners, intermediates, experts, and the maestros. And you could call them whatever you want. And maybe you work for an organization who has a career development model who gives them labels. Maybe they're function labels, maybe they're title labels, maybe they're whatever. But these names help you understand, if I'm dealing with somebody at this level, here's how I need to interact with them. So somebody who is a beginner, let's say, if they're in the beginning stages, I would say this is a total novice. Best thing for a total novice is what? There's two things. Get them to put in the repetitions to whatever it is that they need to do. Make sure that they have crutches, tools, techniques, and anything you can outline they can follow, copy, mimic, and try. So I want you to think, literally, like any of you that are on my job searching side in the job search coaching program, you have a boss hunting Bible. I expect you to be beginners at boss hunting. So what do? We give you the script. What else do? We say, when you're engaged, here's what's going to happen. So for those of you that read the passage that I put on delegating, I put out a passage. And for those of you that have the Zebra Code book, the opening story in the delegating chapter is the one about Kara and when she came to work with me. And less than 3 days into her job, I changed her function, or we added or augmented her function. And there's I think, is Kara's the passage in the community? No? Okay. So we emailed this. And if you don't have the book, you let us know. We'll figure out how to get this passage to you, because it's about Kara, and it's pretty epic, about how she didn't know how to make phone calls. So we literally built her a script that says, okay, open up and you say this, and then they're going to say one of these three things. And then the next thing, yeah, you did. I posted it. Okay. It's in the community. So, and then I said, if they say this, you say this. If they say this, you say this. If they say this, you say this. Then if they say this, you go over to this, right? And she literally created a flow diagram of her talking with, or what the possible response is and what her rebuttal or next thing she should say would be. And then it was just about putting in the repetitions and following. So beginner became intermediate very quickly, because she can put in the reps and had enough swings at the plate where she got to keep practicing. If you give the beginner a try and then next week they try again, that's not good. So that's one. Intermediates are usually somebody that can proficiently do the singular task or maybe multiple singular tasks, but basically I can do this well. Right, except the expert understands and sees the whole framework, all the steps, knows how all of them work together, all the dependencies, all the inputs, all the outputs, all the contingencies, where the stuff breaks, what to do when it breaks. And then the master, well, they can see in all different directions, right? They can see the trends and anticipate, know how to mitigate, right? Can forecast best, know all the chords, all the variables, and so a lot of my online training is built around what? The most common steps you would take, the most common situations you would encounter. Except if you actually talk to me and I worked with you one-on-one, anything that you encounter, I would have an answer for. I would know what to do. So that's what I mean by being a master of something. You all, hopefully, are a master at something, but that's what you're working toward. So you want to know where they start so you can know how to coach them and how to communicate with them. Speaking of, which leads me to my next piece, which is, you've heard of the 5 love languages, Gary Chapman. I've read the book, The 5 Love Languages. I thought I was very clever by saying I would adapt his love language concept to feedback languages for you to communicate with your people. And then somebody was telling me, let's stop with the whiteboarding here. How did we get that there? So somebody was telling me that he also has like a 5 love languages at work. I haven't read that. I don't know what that is. I'm giving you the Andy version of what I think my most recognizable languages are when I've managed thousands and thousands of people as a corporate practitioner. The first half of my career was spent running fairly large teams. So there are a lot of people that I had managed. And I noticed that when you are communicating with somebody, irrespective of what level they are at, this tells you their level of proficiency. But everybody, no matter what level of proficiency they are, have different ways in which they prefer to learn or language that registers more effectively with them. So I created what I thought were analogous love languages, nay, physical touch, for so many obvious reasons, Andy, right? That's Andy V, not Andy L, that we had to laugh about. And so these are the 4 that I came up with. So people that you manage, and they might use multiple ones of these, and their language might change as they evolve through the stages, because actions, number 1, means somebody needs to see you in action. I need to see you do it. Then I'll better understand. So a beginner could definitely benefit from more actions and examples that you provide. So that's one language. Some people are always going to need to see that. It'll never register with me until I can see an example. Other people are very rewards-based. How many people do you know, maybe you're one of them, that says, show me the money. I need the carrot. And so if you do this, you'll get the corner office. If you do this, you'll get a big bonus. That may motivate people. That may get them to move. It could be a combination of these. Others might want your attention. Andy, is it okay? Andy, am I doing this right? A lot of you script out your interview stories and you say to me, is this right? Will you check this for me? Right? That's an attention, right? I want your attention. I want to work through it with you. I want to sound it. I want you to be the sounding board. I need to talk this out with you. They just need to spend more time with you. And that's okay, right? There's some people that way. Other people are, you just need to say, yeah, you're on the right track. So for some of you, when you ask me questions in the system and I say, yeah, you're on the right track. Go, go, go. So these are generally the types of what I call feedback languages that people will respond to. Now, somebody who's a beginner might have this language, actions, they might need to see it. Or as you go up and up and up, they might say, okay, I got it. I got it down. I know what I'm doing. Where is my money? Show me the money now. I'm really good at this. That could change too. So you need to understand, what are you dealing with? Because if you're like, and you know, this is the love language example. If I just keep coming home every night after work and I give my wife a gift, but she doesn't really care about that, and all she wants to do is hang out and have dinner together and talk, right? You're going like this and it's not registering. You're still not in sync. So you need to figure out what's going to register with them. Now, when you have a team, I remember, and I wrote about this in the ZEBRA Code, and I talked about, I was managing a team of 7 or 8. I had 7 or 8 direct reports. They all had people that reported to them. These people were all from different backgrounds. They were all different colors. They were all different religions. They were all different upbringing environments, and they all communicated differently, and some needed to go off in a corner and think by themselves. Other needed to, wanted to follow me all day. It's just So when you're trying to manage a team of people, you have to recognize that you are not managing a team. You are managing a whole bunch of individuals that you need to figure out how to get them to perform at their maximum proficiency and enjoyment, and work together so you're communicating how they all fit so that the sum of the parts is greater than, right? The whole is greater than the individual pieces. So that's something that the love languages / feedback languages, as far as you're concerned in managing people, are going to help you. All right. So that's another thing. And then let's see, what do you got? Let's see. These are some good questions, but let me. Okay, so these are good questions. Let me keep rolling. All right, here's another one. I was working with. Actually, wait. Before I go into this, I do want to say I'm going to skip over a couple of other things that I think you really need. Empathy, and the reason that obviously that's important is what I opened up with when I said you really need to understand what operating environment they're coming from, right? So I need to be more patient with a 22-year-old who wants to text me when I need you to pick up the phone and call me, right? Because that's their preferred mode of communication, or email or whatever. And so there's an empathetic part and there's a trust building part. Now the empathy, if you're in the book club, you actually have access to the building empathy skill, the lesson that coincides with that. And then the trust building, that's in the leadership library, but it all goes hand in hand. But what I wanted to talk with you about today is moving forward to the technique to try to move the team along and motivate them. Is I am a huge fan of the Socratic method. And the Socratic method, if you don't understand what that is it's teaching by asking questions, not giving the answers. And so I also feel the greatest thing about the Socratic method is it engages people to think at a higher level. Hopefully you're asking the right questions as the boss or the mentor or the coach. But the other thing that it does is it gives them ownership into whatever the solution is, the process you're going to go through, or whatever that might be. So I was working with somebody, and I can't remember if this was before or after I had created the session. And she and I were working together on some high performance stuff, and she was managing a team of people. And she was in real estate, and she was in property management of commercial buildings. And she was having and let's just say an interesting time trying to manage different people that were on her team that she wasn't skilled at what they do. So as an example, a big part of what she was responsible for was the property management and the promotion of the commercial building to attract new tenants, but also serve the existing tenants. So imagine you have multiple different businesses in a building and there's a lobby. Well, the lobby is designed from an interior decorating standpoint. That's a skill. Somebody knows how to do that. There's the art that goes up on the wall. There's actually artists that are on our team that are employed by the company. How about that, right? Instead of just buying the art, so there's different kinds of, and then maybe project coordinator and just different kinds of things. Now, she's not an artist and she's not an interior decorator. She's a property manager. Those aren't even her skills. And she says, Andy, I'm having a dickens of a time trying to get these people to work together so that we can create basically a harmonious solution that accomplishes our goal of creating an environment, whether it's in the foyer area or the lobby or the front desk or the hallways or whatever it was, where we're creating the kind of environment that we want for that building to attract the kind of tenants that we want to attract. So you can see this is hugely, I mean, these are like different people going in different directions, and she's responsible for getting them all to work in sync to pull this off. So she wasn't sure how to do this. And I said, okay, you got to get together so that the artist isn't creating something crazy, modern when you're trying to be vintage or vice versa, or colorful when you're trying to be thematically black and white, or whatever it is. The paint colors, the furniture itself, whatever it is. So instead of you trying to dictate to them what you want, and then seeing what they come up with, or even worse, letting them go and create something that isn't really in sync with the overall strategy of what you're trying to build, or the vision, I should say. Sit them down and start asking them, what are we trying to create here? What are the kind of customers we're trying to attract, right? We as an organization are trying to attract these kind of tenants. Okay, well, what kind of art do you think would attract that kind of tenant? And you literally got to walk them through question by question and get them to give you the answers. And then when they get out of line, meaning all the way out in left field, you first off, let them do that, because you never know. They might come up with a brilliant idea, and you wouldn't have known that if you'd have put the guardrails on them and just said, I want this, 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 and this. But as you guide them through this, if something is way out in left field, you challenge it. Tell me more about that. Why is that? What do you think that will do? Do you think that will accomplish this, that, and the other thing? What could go wrong? Like all the questions that you might ask to engage them to think, to ultimately focus on the goal, not the techniques of what they're going to deliver. This is a totally different lesson, but as an aside, I want you to think about this. One of the reasons that a lot of people don't produce what it is that they want to produce is because they focus so heavily on doing the activity and not focusing on the output that they want. Don't get me wrong. I don't want you to misconstrue what I'm saying. When you're doing something, I want you to be present and focused and concentrating on what you're doing. I want you to enjoy the process and enjoy the journey. A big part about enjoying the journey is cranking out outputs that are awesome, that are fun, that you could work with, that you can iterate, and so on, a la the productivity stuff we're going to be talking about in a couple of weeks. But my point is, if you're an artist, they think about the swirls and the art. They're not thinking about the customer. So you have to redirect their focus to the output that you ultimately want, because when you understand the output you want, you will almost naturally adjust the activity to accommodate the output. Who gets what I'm saying? Do you understand? Like, that's got to register. Like, I know what has to happen by the end of the week. I adjust everything I do in order to make that happen. I don't lose track of what I'm doing. I don't get lost in some C- activity when I should be focusing on an A+ activity. Okay, got what I'm saying, right? The end goal, I hate the expression think with the end in mind, but it's kind of like think with the end in mind. What do we want to happen? How do we make that? How many times have you heard me say that? What do you want to happen? How do we make that happen? That's what I'm talking about here, okay? You could use this to guide them. They will love this. Not to mention it's fun, and you usually come up with better ideas doing this, knowing what questions to ask. Okay, then I think the next thing I want to kind of cap it off with this, because I know you've got a lot of detail in the packet. All right. Well, you got to have some way to track it. Everything any of you ever do with me, you have some kind of spreadsheet table, list, or things you got to add up, right? So what do you need at a minimum? Okay, what are the skills inventory? I'm going to coach you. What do we got to get you better at? What are those skills? Where are you? Beginner, intermediate, expert, maestro. All right. Hang on. I can't stand these typos. Next level. Rocket interrupted me. He threw up on my shirt when I wrote that. So I'm blaming my little boy dog. All right. Next level and the date. So where are we trying to get to? By the way, the next level does not mean I've got to go from beginner to intermediate. It could be beginner with these levels of proficiency. You're a beginner +1, or you're a beginner +2, or what is it that you're trying to get to? Because to go from beginner to intermediate might take you a few years. To go from expert to master is going to take you a long time. So we're always looking for, where's the flag in the ground? Your entire life works this way. If you cancel on somebody, tell them, I can't make it, but let's book it to, boom, put the flag down. And are you job searching, right? Hey, you just had an interview. Great. When will I hear from you? Bye. Boom. When's the next response? Boom. The flag goes in the ground. You love that. You have a better understanding of either what you're waiting for, what you're working toward, or how to operate yourself. So what is the next level I'm shooting for, and what's the date? And then, okay, what do I need to do to get there? Don't tell somebody, well, your next review, we're going to, you need to be at this level of proficiency, without showing them, okay, here, if you put the reps in, here's the level of proficiency you should be. Here's how I would do that. Make sure that when you make that cold call, you're notating every cold call while you're trying to make a sale. What your real goal here today in your first day on the job is to make the number of calls. That's first. Second thing is to capture every rebuttal you hear, because you're inventorying a number of rebuttals, so that when tomorrow you show up, you're going to know how to respond to those rebuttals because you collected them. That's right. These are all the different steps we need to take in order to get you proficient at pitching this to a higher level group or whatever. So you want to be as specific as possible. What are the actions? And then when are we going to have checkpoints? So your next level and the date by which we are shooting for is not when we have checkpoints. We have checkpoints along the way, right? So if your goal is we need you over the course of the year to reach this level, we're going to have checkpoints every week, once a month, once a quarter or so. What are those checkpoints and what do those checkpoints entail? Each week, you're going to let me know, 10 minutes, just let me know what you did, what you're struggling with, any of the issues, anything that's unanswered. We'll knock those out every week. Once a month, I want a little more of a detailed write-up of how many calls did you make, how many of these did we get invited to, or whatever data it is you're tracking. And so we'll have these kind of checkpoints. To know when the checkpoints are and what you need to produce as someone who's being coached makes it a lot easier for you to grow. As a coach or a mentor or a manager or a leader or a team leader or whatever, it's going to make it much easier for you to actually make sure they're on the right path. So just very quickly, you have some more steps in the workbook and in the full lesson, but make sure you know where they're starting. And starting means where are you and what are we going to call you, and do we agree this is your level of proficiency? What's helpful for you? Ask them. You can observe, but ask them. Right? There's no substitute. Just ask. Use the Socratic method to build ownership. And then make sure you've got some kind of grid, some kind of table, some kind of plan. Some of you probably have very sexy career development models or succession planning tools or all kinds of good stuff that your companies might pay for. But you got to have some kind of table or metrics or whatever to know where you're going. All this is in the booklet. And then all the other lessons, for those of you that are in the leadership program, you have lessons on full-on lessons, not only on the empathy, but on building trust. You have lessons on delegating. You have lessons on motivating others, the motivational aspects and other things related to that. But for coaching and mentoring, this is a good little summary for you. If you haven't seen the full lesson, I would definitely take it in. And I think if you can especially if you can do some of those early stage steps, you'll get off on the right foot and you'll start working better with the people that you're trying to teach. All right. I hope you enjoyed that portion of this.